A woke art trust has been accused of racism after it funded a poster demanding straight white men pass the power. The Artichoke Trust bankrolled the controversial installation by the French-born black artist Nadina Ali, which was spotted by Madness of Crowds author Douglas Murray this week. Now, Douglas sparked a Twitter storm when he posted a picture of the provocative image with the caption, "Perfectly normal instructions spotted in Southwark, London. Anyone else spot a backlash coming?" It's since been revealed that the trust behind the stunt has received more than £3 million in taxpayer funding since 2018. So what do you think? Was it wrong for an art trust to use taxpayer money to fund this divisive poster? Let me know your thoughts. Dan at gbnews.uk, at GBNews on social media. The results shortly. But first, to do battle on this, let me bring in political YouTuber Maya Tusi, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, broadcaster and Kerr, ex-Corrie actor Charlie Lawson and former Apprentice star Joanna Jaju. So, Charlie Lawson, you're a straight white bloke. Do you feel under attack as a result of this art?
Well, I wouldn't normally be a fan of Mr. Eccleston. He's a little bit too serious for me. But I have to say, I am finding it very difficult being a 62-year-old heterosexual tough guy nowadays. And initially this morning, I was a little bit annoyed and then slightly pissed off. And then I thought, well, this is just a load of nonsense now. Giving taxpayers money to whoever covers a multitude of sins, and we all question where taxpayers' monies go. But I just think this is, I've thought about it, Dan, and I think it's just buck stupid. Let me tell you this. It is very, very... I grew up in Northern Ireland as a white man, a Protestant, blah, 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 this lot. Became an actor. And it is the toughest bloody job I have been through in 42 years. I have never had an advantage over anybody at all. So I find it's starting to annoy me the more I get into this debate. And listen... Peter, I have admired you for so many years. You've got balls of steel, mate, and we may not agree, but it's a pleasure to be on the panel with you tonight. And I don't know what you think about it. I think
well, Peter, let's hear from Peter now. Peter, how do you respond to Charlie? Charlie feels like actually lots of white straight men have huge disadvantages in society today. And by the way, Peter, the facts actually, if you look at working class white boys, the other group in society struggling most.
I totally agree. White working class boys are some of the left behind, and we need to address that. I think about this particular installation, it was an art installation. It represented a very tiny fragment of the work and expenditure of the Artichoke Trust. I think that what they were trying to do was to provoke a discussion, a debate, to get people talking. And I think that's always a good thing. But I think there is an underlying issue here that overall we do live in a society where not all straight white men, but some straight white men do have disproportionate power and influence. And I think it's good that we question that. And
but it doesn't say some. It doesn't say some, does it?
Well, in a poster like that, you can't be too nuanced. The idea is to be, I think with that poster, is to challenge people, to get them thinking.
Okay,
and I do think it's really about sharing. It's about saying, let's share the influence, let's share the power.
Okay, Narinder Kaur, I'm going to bring Narinder Kaur in now. Narinder Kaur, Douglas Murray, who's written a brilliant article for this week's Spectator magazine about this very subject, said, how would you feel if there was a poster that said, "Oi, black blokes, give us your rights," or "Hey, gays, hand over the cash"? Would that be acceptable, Narinder? And if that's not acceptable, then why is this acceptable?
That's not acceptable because we're a minority. This one is acceptable because of a majority. And actually, it's art. I can't understand why middle-aged white men are so triggered by this. Why is it called woke? It's just a discussion. It's art. And it's about time that... this discussion did happen, but why is it Paul from Northern Ireland? Why are you so triggered by this? Why are you getting annoyed by this now? Charles, sorry.
Charlie,
why are you so
the legendary
annoyed?
Coronation Street actor, Narinder, my God, you're from that way.
I couldn't see you here. I'm so sorry. I'm so far sorry.
Charlie, how do you respond?
Charlie, why are you so triggered? Why are white middle-aged men? And you said that sentence, oh, I never had any advantage over anyone. You still had advantage over black and brown men. A huge advantage. And you don't know it because obviously you haven't...
OK, we'll let Charlie respond.
Well, first of all, Jesus Christ, darling, you're getting awful triggered yourself, sweetheart. And
yes, I am.
To be patronising, but
I am.
Hang on. Oi, let me finish, darling. Listen, you're getting awful angry, baby, all right? Just settle down and let me answer your question.
Oh, don't tell me to settle down.
Oh, for God's sake, wise up. Listen, it's a term of affection where I come from. If you don't like it, tough. Look, listen, I'm saying to you, somebody very interestingly tweeted from a Sheffield housing estate today saying, if he's frigging more advantage than anybody else, then I wish you'd give him some power back. So look, I get this. First of all, this is not art. It's designed to provoke the discussion we're having tonight, and you're the one who's getting very triggered. Okay, so just settle down, okay? The world is changing, right? In the last 3 years, if the rules were reversed and it was a BLM demand or whatever, we have to accept that, right? I'm accepting this. But one thing I will say, it is not art, Peter. In the name of Jesus, that's not art, right?
And isn't the problem? Isn't the problem, Joe? I'm going to bring Joanna Jaju in now. Joanna, look, I'm all for freedom of speech, okay, and I'm all for freedom of artistic expression. The issue that I have with this, Joanna, is that it's partly funded by us. It's partly funded by taxpayers. It is a racist message being partly funded through our money, Joanna. I have a problem with that. Can you understand why?
Not really. I think that if you're going to fund art and if you're going to accept all forms of art, then you should accept this as somebody's expression. I mean, one of the most beloved artists in the UK is Banksy, and he's notorious for making very bold political statements. He's back.
Yeah, but we don't pay for that. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, but the point is that people are acting as if this particular funding is that, the taxpayer has literally said, here's this sum of money, go and make these posters about straight white men. It's not that. It's that the taxpayer has basically funded this big art trust who then has commissioned this particular project. That is the difference. And within that, if we're going to be reflective and respectful of the fact that the UK is a multicultural society, then we also need to be able to allow people to express themselves in different ways.
But Maya Tusi, should we be paying for this sort of thing?
I mean, that's the thing. The reality is not really the problem, the poster itself, or the fact that we've been given this organisation over £1 million because of COVID grants and £500,000 every year. It's not just that. The problem goes deeper than this. It's not necessarily just the actual article. It's actually Arts in England, overall the organisations, all these institutions that we have been funding and giving platform for decades. Since the 60s and 70s, these people, the minority, very proactive minority of anti-Western people have been infiltrating the system. And they are going out there, spreading their propaganda, and we are essentially not just funding them, but allowing them to become into the system. And that's why it's not just this organization. The whole of the institution needs to go away. It needs to be abolished, as in no longer state-funded. And actually, I will go further and say the culture department shouldn't exist anymore either, because it is absolutely no business that the government has in these areas.
Peter Tatchell, how do you feel about that? I mean, why is the government funding art?
Well, the Arts Council does amazing work, not much publicised, funding local community arts groups, theatre groups and so on. Those are arts initiatives rooted often in deprived communities where there probably are quite a lot of deprived straight white men as well as others. And I think they do great work. I think it's
everyone does great work, doesn't it?
Fantastic that we don't just have the funding for the high art like the English National Opera and the Royal Opera House, but we actually have grassroots community arts organisations funded as well. And that is what most of the work of the Artichoke Trust is.
Narinder, what would you say to a young guy who is walking out of a council estate, a young white guy who happens to be straight, walking out of a council estate in Southwark, who sees that poster when he is in one of the most underprivileged groups in British society. What do you say to him?
I'd say that he's still got so many more advantages than a young black boy.
But he doesn't. The statistics back up that he doesn't, Narinda.
No, he still will have way more advantages in life, in society, going forward than the young black man, the young brown man.
Yeah, Joanna,
he's still miles
you come
ahead.
in.
He's still miles ahead.
Can I just say that privilege at this point, I think it's really ironic, first of all, that the people who usually call people like me woke and a snowflake are basically offended by something saying pass the power. Privilege is being in a position where you then start to... Privilege is being in a position where you then start to say that, you know, this whole institution shouldn't get funding anymore because of saying pass the power. But you've lived in a situation like...
So, Charlie, you just been a snowflake, Charlie.
And privilege.
No, the woke are being you guys have been snowflakes.
No, that's what I'm saying, Charlie.
Listen,
you just been a snowflake.
Listen, let me tell you something, darling. Let me tell you something. If I was in charge of this bloody government, I'd ban the word offended. You sound to me like one of these people who wakes up in the morning and says, right, what can I be offended by?
No, just you can't say that about racism. Okay. It's not that weak. It's too strong. Charlie, you sound racist saying that.
How annoyed you've been. Charlie, you literally said to us, I woke up this morning, I was really annoyed, and then I was actually really pissed off for the whole day. But apparently I'm the person who's offended. I think you kind of showed
I would never use the word offended, darling, because I don't believe in it. Offense is
but you were annoyed and pissed off for the whole day.
It's been hijacked by people like you.
People like you? Oh my God, Charlie! Stop while you're ahead.
No, but
what's been hijacked?
I'm not offended by this at all.
Charlie, you sound misogynistic as well as racist. I'm sorry to say.
And all you're doing is making yourself look like a buck idiot.
No, I think you are. It's not, Charlie,
right,
that's not nice.
It's a free country.
Yeah, it is a free country, so we're free to say what we want to say and how we feel in this country.
If it's a free country, Charlie, why are you so pressed over this statement saying pass the power? Is it that provocative?
Well,
are you going?
But Joanna, you would be very.
I grew up in a city where we had graffiti all over the walls, and it was offensive or whatever you want to call it. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But don't you think you should just settle down? This is a complete waste of money. It's silly. It's nonsense, and it's doing whatever
millions have been going from the taxpayer.
Do you know the issue I have? The issue I have, and Joanna and Narinda, I'll give you the final word to respond to this. But the issue that I have is this sort of art is divisive. It is stoking racial division in this country. I don't want it banned, but I don't believe taxpayer money should be going into clearly racist artwork. Final word to you.
That's not clearly racist. It's a fantastic piece. I think more taxpayers' money should be going into more things to make people think about how it is. And actually, I don't think the average white straight man is offended. I actually think that they're okay with this. I think you've had a couple of tweets and it's made a big deal. And I think middle-aged white...
Well, Adam Brooks, who's one of our superstar panellists, he was incredibly offended by it last night. Joanna, final word to you.
But then you need to pick, like, which side of the bed are you going to come out of, every morning? Are you going to say that people are snowflakes and then everybody's, really offended over too much? But then when it's you and it's actually something really minute, privilege is being in a position where something like this can offend you and you can prompt for it to be banned and not have to be in a position where you're walking out of your council estate, you're having dog poo put in your letterbox like I did when I was growing up. So even if Adam or whoever is called Sheffield grew up in a council estate, and even if they grew up in a position where they were purely working class and struggled, I did, but I had the added layer of the racial abuse, and that's where the privilege comes in.
But the point is, you are saying all straight white men are privileged. The facts do not bear that out. The facts in 2022 UK do not bear that out.
I didn't say all. And also the different
but
forms
this
of privilege.
poster says all. This poster says all.
It's opportunity as well.
Okay.
When it comes to if I apply for a job and somebody else does and I've got an ethnic name.
Well, look, fascinating debate. Thank you for having it all. That was the political YouTuber Maya Tusi, the human rights activist Peter Tatchell, broadcaster Narinda Kaur, ex-Corrie actor Charlie Lawson and the former Apprentice star Joanna Jaju. Both sides of the story. Here on GB News, so a spokesman for Artichoke, the organisation behind the poster, said the artwork in question raises critical and urgent questions about the society we live in. We're not asking that the public should necessarily agree with the statements in any of the artworks, just that they should think and debate the ideas.